Welcome back to PSL Living. I'm Sarah Prohaska, your host, Public Information Officer for the City of Port St. Lucie. May 9th is a big day for Port St. Lucie. We're breaking ground on the Crosstown Parkway Extension Project, which is going to be the much anticipated third bridge crossing over the North Fork of the St. Lucie River. I am very honored today to have former Senate President Ken Pruitt here, along with Port St. Lucie Mayor Greg Orvik, to talk to us about this important project. I appreciate it so much. Thank you both for coming on.
Well, thank you, Sarah. It's great to be with you today.
And Senator Pruitt, I know that you are going to be speaking at the May 9th groundbreaking ceremony as part of our Pioneer segment.
Yeah.
We're going to have a few people, longtime members of our community who's been involved in this project since the beginning.
Well, Sarah, it's such a wonderful time in the life of Port St. Lucie, and to have been a part of that at the very beginning, and then to finally see it coming to fruition. All this hard work that has been put forward by so many of the professional staff here in the city of Port St. Lucie, the elected leaders who stayed with it. You know, many times the obstacles were many, but nothing good ever comes easy. And so it was that vision and that passion that the city leaders had, and those in the professional staff who really made it all happen. So just thrilled to be a part of that.
Great, and I know we're very excited to have you with us.
Thank you.
Can you walk us through how you were involved in it? You were in the legislature, right?
The first memory. I want to know first memory. He's been here so long. I mean, before he was the Senate president and one of the three most powerful people in the state of Florida, he was here leading the chamber, leading the community. He was drilling wells. So when's the first time, Ken, that you can remember Crosstown and the idea?
Well, you know, the idea was the gridlock on Port St. Lucie Boulevard and Prima Vista.
Yeah,
and if you remember, St. Lucie West it would just, you know, they just started to come out of the ground. Yeah. And so you literally had one east-west corridor all the way through, and in Port St. Lucie, and that was Port St. Lucie Boulevard. And of course, Prima Vista stopped right there at St. Lucie West, but it was just the sheer gridlock, and you just knew something had to happen. And of course, then it was called the West Virginia Corridor, because that's the because that's the link that it.
He's a pioneer, West Virginia, Prima Vista. Now, tell me the year, the first year you can remember. Come on, now go back in time. Tell me that first year you can remember the idea of West Virginia, Crosstown.
It was the mid '80s.
Mid '80s. Wow.
Yeah, it was the mid '80s that the idea started to happen. Remember, Port St. Lucie had a chamber of commerce in the early days, and I was a member of the Industrial Development Committee, and we knew that these east-west corridors for Port St. Lucie economically, for it to be able to thrive along with water and sewer, because that was
they go hand in hand.
You know, that also started as well. In that for our for a city with 80 square miles. 80,000 quarter-acre single-family lots. That not only did you have to have the infrastructure of water and sewer, but you had to have your road infrastructure as well. So it was there was a lot of those who, in the early days, who thought, you know something, at least let's start to put the vision on paper here, and then from there we can go ahead and start trying to find the money. Yeah. And of course, the money part, Mayor, as you always know, the money part's always hard. Was always a tough part. Yeah. But the idea had to gel, and it was some wonderful leaders that all come together and just at least put the vision down and say, okay, this is where we want to go. This is where we need to be. And so West Virginia was huge. Crosstown was huge.
And that was back in the 80s when our population was nowhere near where we are today. So you really were thinking ahead.
And that's why your pundits and critics, there were a whole lot more of them at that time, because they were like, well, what do we need it? Everything is, everything is fine. But you could start to see Port St. Lucie Boulevard, Prima Vista, the traffic, the generation of traffic there. You just knew that you were going to need another one, but you also knew it was going to take a long time. And of course, you had the bankruptcy of General Development. And fortunately, the city leaders at the time, the vision that they had was to make sure that we start to get the right of way along the North Fork and of course, and we had a few fiascos with that at the state level, Mayor, as you remember.
Well, I know that we were always lucky to have you, and of course, I wasn't here in the '90s because I was only 20 years old, but in that time period. But I've been a student of history, and certainly from when I did get here in 2002 on, we were very lucky to have you.
I appreciate that.
And always, when you think about how lucky we are, there's a million reasons why we're so lucky, but when you think about that our region, in 1990, we had 34,000 or so people, and then even later, when you look at the Tri-County area, we don't even have the population of Palm Beach, and yet we had a leader that led the state call Port St. Lucie home, and he never forgot where his home was. He never forgot about his constituents, and he was always going to bat for us. And I can remember when we had money, when I say we, the community, thanks to Senate President Pruitt, had money set aside actually for a crossing out to the Walton Road Bridge, out to the island. There's a fun one.
Do we want to bring that up?
He helped with the transfer of that to Crosstown, and that's kind of in the time period where it was really building momentum. And it was going from an idea and a comprehensive plan to what ultimately would be a referendum approved by, what, 89% of the population? How many elections do you know where someone votes, where you get 89% plus results?
Right, and that goes to show you that as the vision became a reality, the great job that the city had done was communicating. And of course, if you're sitting in traffic, you don't need a whole lot of communicating. But at the same time, there were a lot of environmental concerns, legitimate ones, that obviously had to be, had to be addressed. And the city's just done a wonderful job on that. And so when you look at that, and I remember Rick Chesser, who was then the Secretary of District 4 for DOT, and we had, a good sizable amount of money for the crossing over the Indian River to the Walton Road Bridge is what it was going to be. And of course, the bonding numbers weren't coming out. The ridership on that was not going to be able to pay for it, and you could just tell that was a project perhaps after my lifetime that perhaps could, at least it was on the drawing board, but to take that money and put it into something that was going to be a reality, and that's Crosstown Parkway. So Rick Chester, I'll never forget the call with him and saying, hey, look, I'd like to do this, could I get your support? And he was really enthusiastic about it because there were a lot of hurdles. Not only Crosstown was a lot of hurdles, but Walton Road Bridge was also going to be a lot of hurdles. And he was just an enthusiastic supporter and backer of transferring that money, trying to transfer from, money within state government.
It's not easy, is it?
It's tough. And then the hurdles along the way with the Department of Environmental Protection and all the environmental concerns, legitimate ones that had to be addressed, and were, one by one. And so now, whenever you look at it, and I see the enthusiasm level of this crossing very much with the Veterans Parkway Bridge down in Martin County. A lot of obstacles, a lot of hurdles. I remember that one. That was kind of simultaneously. We were trying to get the Crosstown done, Veterans Memorial Parkway Bridge done in Martin County. And it was like, wow, all these. That's why I don't have any hair. We were working on these projects.
Well, he looks like he got a lot of hair. What are you talking about?
But infrastructure was so critical because if you don't have that in place, and anywhere you go and you can see a lot, I wonder who did that. I wonder who thought of doing that. And that's going to be the beauty of Crosstown and the water and sewer. Nobody really thinks, well, I wonder who, how much bloodshed there was, and
no one thinks of that stuff.
But it was, it was brutal at the time, but it was worth it.
Exactly.
It was worth it because now you have this vibrant, incredible economic prosperity. Sustainability was so critical, was to make sure that we created that infrastructure.
People are very excited. And when you're talking about Veterans Memorial, that's the one, most people know that as the Indian Street Bridge.
Yes, exactly.
And that bridge is really popular, very well utilized, and Crosstown, I believe, is going to be very similar in design.
When you go in the I don't care what time of day, pretty much in morning, in the afternoon, particularly in the early evening, you go to Veterans Parkway Memorial Bridge there, in Martin County. It has become like a community center.
It is.
Outside community
and it's
center.
Beautiful.
And I envision Crosstown, Sarah, to your point, being exactly the same thing. It's really a gathering point for the citizenry. It's not just brick and mortar, just to be able to get from point A to point B. But I actually see that is going to be where the community will really, involve, really to be able to enjoy the fauna and the beauty of that bridge.
Exactly, and the environment, just to be out in the middle of it, it's just going to be beautiful and a great amenity.
We knew it was going to be. It wasn't a matter of if; it was a matter of when. And to be able to see it in your lifetime is what is gratifying, because you can see the fruits of your, of all your work, actually come to be. So, Mayor, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to be a part of it, and just to be able to reflect back on all those great leaders who we had, and continue to stay involved.
All right, I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And before we leave, I want to plug our website. If anyone has questions about Crosstown Parkway, it's www.crosstownextension.com. And
when's the ceremony?
May 9th at 10 a.m. So I really appreciate it. We'll see both of you there.
If the public wants to go, where could they find it?
Crosstownextension.com. The invitation will be up there. We're sending it out also via our newsletter list. So if you're on our newsletter list, you'll get it via that. And and we're sending to the press. So yes, the public is invited.
So should we tell them to get on Crosstown and head east so you can't go anymore?
It'll be at Sandia and Crosstown.
Excellent.
There'll be tents. You can't miss it.
Yeah, and this is really one of those. This is once in a lifetime because these public works projects like this, particularly in today's environment, they just don't happen hardly anymore. And so to be able to participate, the citizenry, be able to look back in history to say that they were there whenever that ribbon cutting was done, the dedication for that
very
crossing.
Exciting.
Mr. President, come on. It took 40 years. We got one more left in us. Two in a lifetime. Come on, man. Come on. Thank you so much for being here.
I'll leave that to all you new guys there.
And thank you for being a champion. I always talk about you can't get anything done without champions. He's a champion among champions. We're honored to have you. Thank you.
Grateful. A lot of supporting cast.
Well, I really appreciate you coming on. It's very exciting to talk to someone who's been involved in it for so long. The 1980s. That's a long time. From the beginning. So I appreciate both of you coming on. Thank you. And we'll be right back after these messages.